Gather round is here, which means another week of tips. Let's get into the first game. Adelaide, Melbourne. Adelaide, they've been so disappointing this year, and there's rumours of turmoil within the actual club. So I'm going to have to say that Melbourne pull out this one. Melbourne have been alright. They weren't the best team in that Port Adelaide game. You guys can disagree, but I don't think they were. So I think Melbourne will get the win. Not by a lot, but they will. Brisbane versus North. I don't really want to talk about the Roos. They were so disappointing on Good Friday. They had that slot in the spotlight to show up against a good team, but they just didn't. They didn't. Then we have Port Adelaide and Essendon. Essendon, man. What a game. Against St Kilda, they pull it off. Jake Stringer, 50 from the boundary, which gives me hope as an Essendon fan that they could win this week. But I have to be realistic, and Port Adelaide beat us by goal both times last time. So I'm going to have to say Port win by a narrow margin of 3 points. Like, I think it'll be very tight. But I think they'll transition the ball a lot better, even though Essendon will win the clearance. They'll transition, counter, and ultimately beat them by 3 points. Next game is West Coast and Sydney. We all know what happened last time. West Coast made it look like it could have been interesting in that first quarter, but then got overrun by 70 points. So Sydney is the obvious tip here, and I think Heaney is going to have a spectacular game, kicking a few goals out of the midfield. The next game, Freo Carlton. I can see a lot of people tipping Freo here, just because Freo have started off the year really strong, despite it being against 3 teams that haven't won a game yet. I still think it's really impressive to beat the Lions and all the teams they've beat. And Carlton, I don't know what to say. They win all their games close, except for that North game, but you do expect them to pump him, especially with Mackay going away to Essendon, meaning that North's back stocks is with Toby Pink at the moment, who's only 192 centimeters. So I think this is a pretty obvious tip. Even though Carlton has only beat North last week, I think they'll respond and beat Freo pretty comfortably in the end. Then we have Bulldogs and Geelong. Bulldogs, they're an interesting side. I don't know how they're going to go this year, but I do feel Geelong are the better side. If you watch that game against Hawthorn, Hawthorn kept coming, but the Cats pulled it out in the end, so I'm going to tip Geelong. The next game, Gold Coast versus the GWS Giants. The Giants are too good, so I am tipping them. But it's a shout out to Gold Coast because Took Miller, Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson, they're so strong. Their midfield core is insane, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see an upset here, but I will tip the Giants. Then we have Richmond St Kilda, same thing. Richmond, impressive, but, well, not exactly the same thing, but Richmond are super depleted. Tom Lynch, man, I feel so bad. But he's gone, probably for the season. I know it's meant to be, I think it's 8 to 12 or 12 to 16, but you just can't do another ACL. It's disappointing. Then they have the suspension. Dion Presti is still out. Josh Gibcus out for the season. They'll get belted in this game, probably by 40. But if Richmond put up a fight, it wouldn't surprise me. And if they got the win, it would surprise me, but not much. And going into the last game of Gather Round, Collingwood Hawthorn. Collingwood, terrible start to the season, but they got the win against Brisbane. They looked impressive with their pressure rating. Hawthorn haven't been able to put together more than one quarter in a game, so I am going to tip the Pies. But that isn't very confident because Finn McGuinness could go to Dacos, lock him up at halfback, and it could result in Hawthorn getting the win like they did last year. But I'm going to tip the Magpies in this one. But if you enjoyed, subscribe so you don't miss a tipping video or a review video. I'm planning to release a Supercoach video this week. Don't know if it'll happen, but hopefully it does, and I'll see you later.